do I need to? Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Let me just confirm.
1 second. I think I need to
Okay.
also 1 second. Let me do
Okay,
this.
we are live.
We're live.
All right. So, good afternoon, everyone. How you doing today? I hope you're doing well. It is my absolute pleasure to welcome you all to this exciting webinar hosted by the Federal Ministry of Communications, Innovations, and Digital Economy, Nigeria. Today, we're here as part of the program, to learn from this webinar that happens. And this webinar is basically, dedicated to equipping fellows with digital skills that they need. Just something to augment the training that you go through, right? And our topic for today is tech journey and AI, making the most of your 3MTT learning experience. Tech journey and AI, making the most of your 3MTT learning experience. I'm sure you would understand why this topic is very, very valuable and important to your journey in tech, because it would basically give you insights into how you can navigate your learning journey effectively and efficiently, how you can leverage AI, and position yourself for success in the tech industry. So I'm super excited and I hope that you are. If you're joining us, please, I want you to drop your name in the chat box. Just drop your name and let us know where you're joining in from. I can see that we have 121 people already joining the call, and it's amazing to have you here. I can see that I have Taibat from Kwara State. I have Gadi Gwiba from Gombe State. It's amazing to have you here. I have Nuhu Peter joining from FCT Abuja. It's a pleasure to have you here. I also have Fidelis from Abia State, and that is the beauty of the 3MTT program, because we are situated in all the states in Nigeria and is reflected in the kind of audience that we have here today, right? Okay, so before we dive in, we'd like to start with a quick icebreaker, a quick fun activity to just warm up the room, right? I have a question, and I hope that you would indulge me. So my question is as follows. If AI could automate one thing in your life right now, what would it be? If AI could automate one thing in your life right now, what would it be? What would you want AI to automate and make easy for you personally? I think one thing I would want AI to automate is just deciding what to eat. Yeah, because I always have troubles deciding what I'm going to eat. And if AI can just do that for me, my life would be so much easier. So I would like to also hear from the audience. And if our speaker here has anything to share before then, would also just want to hear from you informally before we introduce you. So, is there anything that you'd want AI to automate for you?
For me, right? Specifically.
Yes.
Okay. Hi, it's nice to be here and thanks for the invitation. I think there are a lot of things that I would really love AI to be able to do for me, just quite a number of things. One is if I can have AI help me decide, what meetings I should go to, what meetings I should attend on a daily basis, and optimize which one would be the most productive before I actually jump on the meeting, that would be super, super awesome.
That's quite interesting. And I know that a lot of us can relate to this because we all have that, all that, this could have been an email moment in meetings, right? And we're wondering if this is really needed. So I can appreciate, we've also gotten some responses from our audience. Um, Emmanuel will want AI to help me manage my time. And the
Hmm.
absolutely interesting thing about all this is that if you check, there's an AI tool for all these things, right?
Hmm.
Somebody
Hmm.
wants AI to help him make money, automate what I should wear daily, and lots of interesting responses on the YouTube channel. Thank you all. And it tells me that we are together. All right. So ladies and gentlemen, we will get right into it, and it is my absolute honor to introduce our distinguished speaker today, Dr. Yanuolua Odebode. We are very, very honored to have you here because he's a renowned AI expert, an entrepreneur, and technology leader. He has a wealth of experience spanning artificial intelligence, network analytics, and multimodal clustering. His expertise in deep learning, reinforcement learning, and robotics has led to groundbreaking innovations across the different industries. And trust me when I say that it's not easy to get somebody of this caliber, right, to speak to us. So we're very thankful that you're able to take out time. He's here because he's deeply passionate about mentoring the next generation of AI and robotics experts. And I'm sure that you will find a lot of what he'll be saying here insightful. I'm super excited about this and I can't wait to get right into it. So, with a resounding round of applause and any emoji that you can find, monitoring to see. I want to see emojis flowing. Please join me in welcoming Dr. here to the stage. All right, welcome, sir. Thank you
Thank
so much,
you. Thank you
Odebody.
so much, Zara. It's really an honor to be here and to share my experience with the audience. And AI is really shaping and shaking the way we do things. And it has been, and it will continue to be. And so right now is the time to jump on it and make the best use of it and be and literally have the opportunity to set the stage or the track record for your future. And so I'm super excited. I don't know how you want us to do this. I was going to share a few slides and then we could probably go into conversations like so. Is that okay?
Sure, very, very well. Please go
Okay.
ahead.
How many minutes do you think I
Okay, so we have 40 minutes,
okay.
basically. Yeah, we have about 40 minutes for this, and then we'll take Q&A.
Q&A. Okay, fantastic. All right. So I'll really try to go through the slides real quickly. Um, so a lot of people are still confused as to what AI really is. Many people will think of AI as being your GPT, right? Your chat GPT. That's not really what AI is. And so one of the things I really want to dive into today is to help explain what AI really is and how AI can actually help to supercharge your learning. And it's really, really critical that we see where the power of AI comes in when it comes to learning, because the way we used to do school before was that we go to go to class and a teacher stands on the podium and basically teaches you and walks you through calculus or walks you through math or walks you through whatever the subject is, English, social studies, all that stuff. And you leave the class sometimes and you're like, hey, wait a minute, what did he just say? I didn't quite catch that. You might ask a question and the professor doesn't necessarily understand what it is that you just asked and responds in ways that you don't necessarily understand. And so you just walk out of the place saying, okay, I got it. And then the time for the quizzes come, and then you take the exam, and then you get, a B or you get a C. I would hope not an E or an F, but you know, you get a score. And you're wondering like, man, I went through this whole class. I wasn't really able to learn anything from it, right? And so AI is shifting the way we do things. And AI isn't necessarily GPT. AI isn't necessarily what we've made it out to be in most cases. So the question then becomes, then what is AI? Just tell me what AI is. A lot of people interpret AI as just natural language processing. You engage chat prompts, and you text what it is that you want, and then it responds to you. That's a piece of it, but that's not what AI is generally. So what is AI? And the way I like to define AI, and I want to define it in such a way that everyone can understand it, because I understand we have people that are in the technical space, deeply in the technical space. We have other people that are not necessarily in the technical space. So I just want to make sure I capture it in such a way that everybody understands. So think about AI like a computer that has a brain. When I say a brain, I don't mean a computer brain, I mean like a human brain. And this computer is able to help us with various tasks. So this computer needs to understand how these tasks are performed. And so we need to, in some way, feed this computer with the information that it needs to be able to accomplish this task. So, for example, we had the icebreaker earlier. A lot of people were saying they wanted AI to be able to schedule their to help them with time optimization or to help them with X, Y, and Z. So for the computer to be able to help us with those things, the computer needs to know what it is those things are and how it should respond to those things that we're doing. And so AI is like feeding the computer with that information so that the computer can know how it is to respond when we do ask it questions or when we do request those things that we want done. So you might have, for example, you might have a situation where every time you need to wash your clothes, you have to use your hands, to wash it, right? Use your hand to wash it. And then once you're done washing it, you dry it outside. Whereas there are others that have like the washing machine that actually helps to do the washing and everything. So the washing machine needs to understand the mechanism of washing the clothes so that it's able to do as great of a job, if not a better job, than the human would, right? Now imagine that yes, the washing machine is able to wash the clothes. What if you didn't want to, what if you didn't want to leave your bed to go wash your clothes? Then you have this humanoid robot that walks into your room and says, "Hey, how are you doing this morning? Do you have any clothes to wash?" And you feed the robot with the clothes. It takes it downstairs or upstairs, or it just knows how to move around. It puts it in the washer, and boom, it's done washing. And then you say, "Well, I don't want to dry it." So it feeds it into the dryer, and then from feeding it into the dryer, right? It says, "Well, I don't want to also hang it." It's able to do the hanging as well. So you have a system that is able to essentially um, understand what it is that you're doing and give you responses. And so we have all of these human tasks. Think about every single human task. Think about every single challenge that the world is facing right now. If that challenge can be fed into a system and the system is able to understand it and the system is able to act according to what it is that we want it to act according to, then we can essentially find solutions to a variety of problems that exist on the planet today. So take any human task. The question then is, how do we feed that information to the system? How do we help the system to better understand how to analyze this information so that we can actually get what it is that we're looking for. And so some of this is human inputs into the computer. So a human being is writing and typing some of these things up. And then we take that and then the computer is able to understand it, right? Some of this is, we plug in a sensor to a specific device and the sensor is pulling out this information. We feed this information into the system and then the system is able to understand it and is able to respond to it, right? But it doesn't work as simple as I make it to look like, but at least it helps to get the message across on what's actually happening under the hood. So if you're tracking, say yes. If you're tracking, say yes. If you're getting it, just put a thumbs up on the chat, on YouTube, wherever you may be, just put a thumbs up. And let me know if people are getting it as well. So because I can't see what's happening on the YouTube. So
Well,
anyway.
that's why I'm here. I'm your eyes on YouTube.
So are they
And
getting it? Are you getting the response on YouTube? Are people
yes,
getting it?
yeah, we have over 279 persons on the call. And yes, they are giving you a thumbs up. The first one,
Fantastic.
Simon.
Fantastic. Fantastic. So we have the human task. The human task takes in data. We're able to feed that data into a computer system. This computer system is able to understand it. How it understands it, I'll go into it in a bit. And this human task, we can then ask it questions and it's able to give us response. So this is not spooky stuff. This is not some voodoo in the village, from some mystical, creature, feeding the information to the computer. So this is us essentially taking all the things that we do on a daily basis, feeding that into the system and doing what we call training on it so that we can generate a model that we can actually interact with. So you can imagine how many industries can be shifted or changed with this utility. It doesn't matter what you're doing. You might be a hairdresser. You might love farming. You might love robotics. You might just be into technology. You might be into cybersecurity. It does not matter what you're doing. As long as you're gathering data, right? You are able to effectively make things more efficient, do things more effectively. You can imagine what that would do for the health industry, right? You can imagine how many of our family members that we've lost to sicknesses that would be whose lives will be transformed because of this technology. So it doesn't matter where you are at today, it is directly applicable to you because some people say, I want to shift careers a little bit because I think, everything is moving into technology. And because of AI, I want to shift my career. I'm like, no, look at your industry and where you are today. How can AI be applied to that industry? And once you start to identify those, that is actually a good place to start. Okay. So all industries will be influenced by this. So let's take an example. So let's say, for example, I am creating a company and I want my company to be really good at being able to pick shapes. I use it as a, dummy example. I'm not creating a company like this. I'm not suggesting anybody creates a company like that. I don't know how successful that company is going to be, right? But you ingest data. The data that you ingest, let's say I was creating a company that is able to help companies identify shapes. What data set am I ingesting? I'll be ingesting data sets like different shapes, like triangles, circles, um, squares, rectangles, whatever it is, right? I feed that data, and drop it in an S3 bucket. An S3 bucket is a storage system. Your storage system might be Google Drive. Your storage system might be, um, what's it called? Dropbox, whatever the case may be. You feed all of those data sets into that storage system. Then I need to get the computer to be able to learn how these shapes work, how they appear. And that's where machine learning comes in, right? Or deep learning comes in. The computer is trained to be able to pick out and understand how these things work. For example, if it's computer vision, it might be you using a convolutional neural network. It could be n number of things. This is just for images, right? Then the computer learns these patterns and learns these different shapes because you fed that information into it. So that if you had a new shape, or like say you had a new rectangle, or you had a new square, or you had a new circle, then the computer is able to say, it is a rectangle, it is a square, it is a circle, right? This is essentially how training works in artificial intelligence. You feed data sets into it, you train your model, or you train, those data sets to be able to learn how these patterns work. Then you have a model that is generated from training that you then use to basically make decisions. Is this a circle? Is this a square? Is this a triangle? And it's able to pick that out. So what's the benefit of this? Think about self-driving cars. I don't know if Nigeria has, cars moving on by itself right now. And the reason why I say that is because of the roads, our road systems and things of that nature. But imagine if computers are able to understand roads and understand road patterns and understand how to navigate through it through data set that have been ingested, then guess what? We're able to move around without the assistance of a physical driver,
And I
right?
can't wait for that.
You said what?
And I can't wait for that.
I know, right? What would that look like if you just got into the car and said, "Hey, I want you to drop me off at the university today," and then the car just drives you and just automatically moves everything around it and things of that nature. So these are groundbreaking things that we can do to shift and change our environment, right? Another example is for those that are in cybersecurity. Imagine that you have large number of attacks that happen all across the world, right? Imagine you had a data set that had those patterns of attacks that happen, and you train the system to be able to learn how to identify those patterns so that now if anyone who tries to sort of jump on the system can go check, does this represent an attack pattern? If it does, then it flags it as an issue. That is cybersecurity, right? So you don't necessarily have to change your cybersecurity career because you think, man, it's all in AI. No. Well, how can AI be applied to cybersecurity? That's another example. Another example that you would be able to relate with, which basically is really, really critical for your learning in 3MTT, is your AI tutor. Imagine that rather than having to wait or send an email to a professor waiting for their response on a specific subject, you can then engage a GPT or a ChatGPT or a Claude and saying, hey, um, well, I ran into this error while I was writing this code. And this is the error. Can you share some insights on how I can fix this issue? And then the system starts to break down how you can actually fix the problem. But guess what? It doesn't only break down how you can fix the problem. You can actually engage it further and say, well, I tried this and it did not work. How do you say I fix it up? So you copy that thing, paste it in GPT, it tells you how to go about it again. And it keeps helping you iteratively to fix the problem. Guess what? You just hired a tutor, and that tutor is GPT or Claude. So imagine what can happen if everything you needed to learn today, you had the ability to do it via a prompt. That is game changing. That is life changing. It means that there's nothing that is should be impossible for you to learn because of these tools that exist that help you to grow and to build your skill sets, right? Now, I know I mentioned the AI tutoring piece towards the end. And that's because I wanted to introduce you guys to what generative AI piece does. And I'm trying to introduce this concept in very low level language. So it's easier for everyone You don't even have to be a technologist to be able to grab what it is that I'm saying. So the generative AI concept is like a smart copycat. And this smart copycat learns from what it sees. So imagine that you had a camera monitoring everything you were doing for 365 days of the year. And after monitoring everything you were doing, is able to learn every pattern that you basically execute all through the year. And based on the pattern that it's able to learn from you, it's able to then do what it is that you would do instead of you having to do it. So you now have a computer that can draw on your behalf. You now have a computer that can write on your behalf. You now have a computer that can even talk like you, right? That's what generative AI is the ability to actually create something new from what it has learned over time on what it is that you do. That is next level. That's like next level. So now if you had an idea,
Level.
it is, right? Because now if you have an idea and you didn't even know how it is that you can make it work, you can say, hey, like I'm not a digital marketer, but I know Russell Brunson is a digital marketer. If you could tell GPT, if you're going to think like a Russell Brunson, how would you implement this digital marketing strategy? And then the system starts taking all the knowledge it can glimpse or can get about whoever the subject matter is, and the system is able to basically give you suggestions and ideas that may not necessarily directly represent what the individual would do, but will give you some ideas on where to get things started. That's next level. Now, if you're confused as to a specific problem, you can go and you can ask the question. The system will go through its corpus and try to learn what exactly would I need to be able to answer his questions really well. And so with these systems, with these generative AI systems, it's very important to be very, very specific about what you're asking. So specificity is extremely important in getting the right response. And I'll teach you and I explain to you what that looks like in a few minutes. Now, I believe that if you are able to add generative AI to how you do work today in some shape or form, you can drastically improve your performance, not just as a student, if you're working as someone who is working in the working class, whatever it is that you're doing today, you can dramatically improve your performance. So here's a study by MIT, and this study is on the power of generative AI and how it can help, improve performance by over 40%. So they had three groups in this specific study. They had a control group, which means they weren't using AI. They had the GPT only condition group, which means that they use just GPT only. And then they had the GPT plus overview group, which means a group that was given an explanation on how to use GPT and essentially handed GPT also to use to be able to execute the task. And so they asked these individuals to imagine that they worked for a shoe company and that their manager had asked them to come up with a new product and present it in a meeting. And they isolated this group. As you see, the groups that used GPT did 38% better, and the groups that used GPT plus an overview did 42.5% better. So you can imagine what this tool can do, or what these tools can do to help you improve your goals, your dreams, your visions. The world has become a better place, man. Guys, the world has become a better place.
It has,
You do
honestly.
not you do not have to buy books any longer. You can
Exactly.
ask these thing questions, man, and you
I
get
keep asking
answers.
myself, how have I been surviving?
I know, right? Can you
But
imagine that? Right? I mean, can you imagine what this does for us, what this does for us. It's incredible. And so here are four ways that you can improve your personal productivity with artificial intelligence, right? I would mention it. I would throw out some tools. I deliberately made sure that I removed tools in my presentation because I want you to focus on, because like I think Zara was saying it earlier, that like there's nothing you want to do that there isn't a tool out there to solve it, right? But I want to basically empower you with knowledge so that knowledge helps you to go out and now begin to really seek for resources that would actually help you to grow, right? So automate repetitive tasks. Think about everything that you're doing today that is repetitive, right? So you send emails every day, you know. Now you can create or you can have use GPT to help you with restructuring your emails. You communicate, some of you are freelancers that communicate with people all across the world, right? You can be effective in your communication now by putting what it is that you're saying on GPT and saying, does this sound professional, right? If it doesn't, how should I position it so it sounds more professional? Does this sound empathetic? How do I position this to make it sound empathetic? And you can start using tools like ChatGPT. You can use tools like Claude to be able to get those kinds of things done. Other repetitive tasks that you might want to do is maybe you want to every day you want to send an email or you want to send multiple emails to people, and you have the list of the emails of the individuals you want to send those emails to. And you want, maybe it's a newsletter and you want to repeatedly send a newsletter across 6 or 7 months, right? So what do? You use a tool like Make. The website is called make.com. Make, make.com. And in Make, you can do a drop down that actually helps you to take an email and send it to people automatically. You don't have to do it yourself. It will just automatically know to do it. You could use your email as well because now emails have schedulers and things of that nature. But if you want it to be somewhat automatic, or if you want it to even send a follow-up message, then you can use a tool like Make to help you do it. You can use a tool like Zapier to help you do it. Now, the beautiful thing about Make is that they also have an AI text prompt action where you can actually use the AI to basically create the automation that you're looking for. So tools like Make can be extremely useful. There are some of us that are into content creation and content generation on social media, right? You can feed your idea into GPT and say, think like a marketing director and give me some ideas on how I can promote X, Y, and Z, and use that to generate a couple of ideas. You can also use a tool like Midjourney or DALI or one of the stable diffusion models, right, to generate images that can go with the content that you're putting to make what you're putting out more creative. So can you imagine what it is that you can now do that you would probably have to think through to be able to do previously
Mm-hmm.
very, very easily, right, Zara?
Yeah, of course, and spend tons of time, doing that thing.
You get what I'm saying? Creating a pitch deck used to be so difficult, but now you can use a tool like Gamma.app to create your deck in 5 minutes,
Yes, exactly.
right? So now you have these tools that can help you to be more productive, helps you spend less time doing things that are mundane, right? And it helps you focus more on your creativity as a human being.
I absolutely love that you're stressing this productivity because
Mm,
someone made a comment earlier and was
mm,
asking whether or not AI is not going to make us lazy. So
mm.
it's quite
The- the- yeah, yeah, absolutely, Zara. Like literally, AI is not going to make us lazy, AI is going to make us more productive. AI is going to make us focus on things that are more important. Because most of the time, what I found is that like we spend half the time, for example, trying to get the creativity of a PowerPoint together rather than actually thinking about the content of what would go in the PowerPoint itself. And so now you have tools that can help eliminate that so that your creativity can be boosted, right? Now AI is placing a higher demand on us to think more, to be more thoughtful about what it is that we put out, because in the past we just put it out because it's, there was no time to really, it would take us a longer time to be able to come up with some of these things anyways, right? The third one is for optimizing decision making. So let's say you had some way of doing things today and you wanted to identify where the loopholes are in the things that you do so that you can actually create something much better, right? You can feed AI into the system. The AI is basically ingesting all of that content, and the AI is helping you to figure out how to be more productive. So I'll give you an example. Let's say I was creating a deck. So I have a deck, I'm building my deck, and I want the AI to score me based on certain metrics, effectiveness in communication, uh, uh, you know, workflow or the flow of content. I break it down like that, and I wanted AI to basically tell me and measure it from a scale of 0 to 10. Then with AI, I'm able to take that feedback, feed it back into the content and create better content. Learning and skill development. I spent a lot of my time talking about tutoring. So learning and skill development, this is where tools like educative.io come in for people that are in 3MTT and trying to learn technology. Educative.io is really, really good, really, really good tool. There are other toolkits like towards data science that you could use for learning about data science and things of that nature. But educative.io even has a breakdown, allows you to put your code in and things of that nature. So tools that actually help you boost and improve your productivity and effectiveness becomes where your focus should be, and not necessarily, oh man, would AI take away our jobs, right? So you want to get your skill level
I
from,
would think you're reading the comment section if I don't know better because
oh, really?
yes, three separate comments just now.
Wow, wow.
Worried
Okay.
about whether or not AI will take their jobs.
No, I'm not reading the comments at all. No. So AI would not take your jobs. What you need to do is turn your skill level up. Take it from red to orange to yellow and to green. And and if you do that, you will be sought after by everyone, right? There's an estimate that AI will create about 95 million new jobs. This is the time to equip yourself with the knowledge that you need to be able to compete globally to be able to get these opportunities. So AI is not coming for your job. AI will come for your job if you don't embrace AI and use AI. I'll give you an example. We're taking some notes at the office the other day, and we drew the notes on the board. One of my colleagues took the picture of that note, dropped it in GPT, and asked GPT for a summary. These were just like literally diagrams. GPT was able to take that and summarize the entire meeting for us so that we didn't have to basically go through writing that by hand. That would be 30 minutes or 45 minutes of our time that could be spent on something else that just got cut off, so that we can get to the work that we had to do and become better. So companies are going to be looking for individuals that can actually help them with these optimizations. And this is the best place to position yourself. So I told you guys earlier, I'll teach you how to, um, Zara, let me ask, how am I doing on time?
Well, it is such an interesting session. I honestly didn't even know that the time has gone by, and there's so much engagement on the YouTube channel.
I'm
More
so
than
excited.
few minutes. You probably would want to take a look after this session. It's one of our most engaging sessions.
Wow, that is awesome. That is awesome. That's good to know. So I'm going to teach people how to use GPT. And maybe another time we could schedule to sort of deep dive into some other topics that I would love to share with the group. So let me teach you guys how to use GPT effectively. Okay. So prompt, using the word prompt. So first is your persona. You have to define who ChatGPT is impersonating or the perspective it should take. So you need to tell it like act as a, so act as my tutor. You can even go and find your favorite professor in Stanford University or MIT and say, act as whoever that person is, right? Then the next thing is describe the format you want the data to be presented. So when you give me, when you respond to me, this is how I want you to respond to me back. Tell the system how you want it to respond to you back. So you say, well, I want you to give me back this data or your response in this format. I want it to come out more looking tabular. I want it to look more as a JSON. If you are into technology and you want to be able to input whatever it is that is outputted from there and use it for something else, tell it how you want it to come out. I want it to I want you to basically describe this using tables or using some charts. Tell it how you want it to respond to you. Then the next thing is the objective. What is the true purpose you need the GPT to accomplish? So say, for example, um, I am looking for insights on how to do Z, blah, Z, right? So tell it what purpose, what it is that you want it to accomplish. And once you're done, you also need to tell it the method, how you want it to think, or a chain of thoughts that you want it to arrive at when it gives you the solution. So be very, very specific, right? Be extremely specific. Say, I want you to outline it in bullet forms. I want the flow of the content to be X, Y, and Z. So be very, very specific about it, right? Also, the parameters, right? Parameters is say, well, this is what I don't want. This is what I want. This is what I don't want. So you can provide a little bit of background or constraints that you wanted. I do not want any content around this. I want you to be very specific on technology or architecture. No content outside will be considered relevant except this. So put in the parameters that you want it to have, structure it properly, put it in a note before you then post it out. Don't just engage it. You could engage it, directly. It's still totally fine, but you don't have to engage it directly and then it loses its context in between. It works best when it understands your context. And then from there, if there was an example or a template, share that template with it so it understands what it is that you're trying to put in. Then you hit enter, and the system starts to, GPT or Claude starts to break down your responses for you. If it doesn't respond as you expect, provide some clarifications so that it can actually produce the response that you're looking for. But think about all the questions you've ever had. Think about all the problems you've ever had. Think about all the challenges you've ever had, and think about how now technology can actually help you very quickly fix that problem. think about, the things that you've struggled with, the code bases that you've struggled with, the error messages that you've gotten countless amount of times, and think about how this tool can actually help you to be more effective. So here are 4 things I would say you should think about to be able to stand out. I call them the standout mentality. One, as a student, you need to be open to continuous learning and experimentation. All right. So you might not necessarily get everything all at one go, but if you're open to learning, if you are open to continuous learning, if you're open to trying things out, a lot of times we don't want to try things out because we want to hit it the first time and get it all the way off the park. Like just do really well with it on first try. Most things in life don't work exactly that way. So you need to be open to experimentation, open to trying things several times. And most of the time, you have to try the 10th time to be able to get it to work. Also, open your mind to the ability to problem solve and to think critically. So think about a problem that exists, right? And start to use these tools to navigate your path around understanding the problem first. You see, a problem that is well understood is half solved. So if you're able to break the problem down into bite sizes, then you are on the road to solving the problem, right? Also open yourself to open source tools and the knowledge sharing mentality. Many times we want to hide and keep knowledge, but you see, if you hide and keep the knowledge that you have, you're not exposing what you have to be fed with more. So the more you share, meaning you post what you're doing on GitLab, share what it is that the insights there that you have on a Medium or on towards data science or any of those platforms, then you have the inputs that actually help you to grow, help you to build, and it helps you to develop that global mindset that you're looking to have. Also, adaptability is really, 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 really key. A lot of people have gotten stuck to using Excel, that switching to AI becomes really, really hard for them because they don't want to leave what it is that they were doing before. You have to be adaptable because if you're adaptable, you're able to expose yourself to new ways of thinking, and that helps you to be able to grow. And if you have all of this mindset, then you're embracing a scalable way of thinking, which then starts to think, okay, well, I'm able to do this, then how do I optimize on it? How do I become better altogether around it? And so I would encourage everyone who is listening to me to have this standout mentality. It's like the Mamba mentality, right? It's the standout mentality, and the standout mentality is whatever I lay my hands to do, I'm going to do it extremely well. I'm going to be the best at it, and it doesn't matter what anybody says. I'm going to plug away on it. I'm going to stay up late at night, make sure I get it. When GPT just came out, I was up late just asking lots of questions. I'm like, geez, this is game changing. This is incredible. So that's my message to you, and I'll pass it on to Zara right now for questions.
Thank you so, so much, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
I'll just reiterate what many of our fellows have said in one way or the other, because I'm not sure that there's a sentence that would capture how engaging this has been. So lots of the comments had interesting, engaging, insightful. A lot of times we have a lot of insightfuls, a banger. Please
Wow.
continue. So fantastic. An
Wow.
amazing one. I'm learning a lot. There was never a dull moment.
Wow.
So
Wow.
trust me when I say that this is super
This is
exciting.
incredible.
So we don't have a lot of time, so I'll go right into questions. Some
Yeah.
have been asked already, so I'll just take them briefly so that we can get right into it. So yes, we have one here. What are the disadvantages of AI? What are the disadvantages of AI? Then the second question is, yes, can Dr. Odebode help with the answer to this? Can he give an instance? Okay, can he give an insight to how generative AI can be applied to telecommunication? How generative AI can be applied to telecommunication? I have one last one, but I'll just let you respond to this.
Okay. So the first question is any negatives, right? Yes.
Yeah.
I always tell people the same uh the same tool you can use to help people is the same tool you can use to destroy people, right? And so basically a gun can be used to protect, a gun can be used to cause problems as well, right? And so when I speak about the responsible use of AI. And the responsible use of AI, basically thinks about the ethical concerns that exist also within the context of the use of AI, right? So for example, a lot of people are creating these YouTube videos now where they put the image of, some president or put the image of some character and sort of impersonate it to be able to draw crowd.
Mhm.
That is terrible. That is unacceptable. And to be honest with you, I believe that like laws are going to come that would actually start to make those things really criminal. And so
Mm.
it's really, really important that when you think about what it is that you're trying to do in the AI space, you think about what the ethical concerns are. It's called this field, that field is called responsible and ethical AI. And so do a lot of research on that. There are a lot of NIST regulations, GPDR, I think is what's called regulations around responsible use of AI. And that cuts out across from training the data set all the way to generating a model, right? Because sometimes, for example, I don't know if you've used Alexa before, and just try to speak Yoruba or try to speak Hausa or try to speak Igbo and see if Alexa is going to pick up your language. Why is Alexa not picking up Yoruba? Why is Alexa not picking up Hausa, right? This responsible use of AI. How do grandmas and granddads use this tool if they are not trained to do so? There's some AI systems that are not trained to recognize black colors. It is crazy, right? So, how do we start to build systems that actually also are very, very responsible in the way that they handle biases, right? This discrimination against female versus male. Why? Because the data set is fed with more men data than it's fed with more female data. And so we want to start closing those gaps and making sure that AI is fair, AI is not biased, and that is a different subject in and of itself. And people that choose to pursue those areas will definitely have, a place in history, to solve some real world problems. So that's on ethical negatives of AI. So there are a lot as well. But what we want to focus on is how do we make the best use of it and make it more productive. Then someone mentioned about telecommunication. I would assume that if you think about Zoom, right, it's already doing some of that, right? Where you're technically able to record. I can record this entire message, this entire call right now and say, hey, translate it before by the end of this meeting, right? That is telecommunication. That's it used, being directly used in telecommunication. I was thinking about this idea the other day. Can I record a call, like a phone call, and essentially have AI translate to me what the action items should be on those calls? That
Yeah.
is generative
Need
AI.
that.
That is generative use of AI, right? So those are ways that can you interact with the communication. That's also another, So let's say I had this 2 hour call. Well, I wanted to ask questions. Imagine what that would do for the legal industry, right? Where you're able to record all these conversations that happen during legal proceedings, and you're able to translate it in such a way that you can then ask this AI several questions and say, how would you suggest I address this specific case?
Mhm.
What are some of even now, when someone sends me a message, sometimes I put it in my system and say, what are the concerns that I should be looking out for in this message that this individual sends me? So you can imagine being able to take a conversation and being able to translate it and have those kind of conversations. I think that's game changing for telecommunication.
It is. All right. I know I said one last one, but I'd like to include another one because there's somebody that has posted this question like 10 times. I know if I don't read it out, person is probably going to drag me today. So I'm going to add that. So two more if you don't mind,
That's
please.
fine with me.
Okay, okay. So someone is asking, what is the okay, sorry, what strategies or best practices can organizations adopt to successfully integrate AI into their existing data analytics workflows, especially with teams, especially for teams without deep technical expertise?
Oh, well,
Yes.
that's a very loaded question. That's a very loaded question because, I feel that every company needs to do an audit on their current system. A majority companies need to do an audit on their current system, not just their information technology team or information technology group, the entire organization, right? And look at areas like people, process, training, right? Those pillars that make up what an organization's foundation really should be, and then
Mhm.
start to figure out how does AI help to fill those gaps. There's a whole lot around change management, right? Moving from one system and then switching it all to the other system. It depends on the type of organization you also have as well. What I would always suggest is always start with training first,
Hmm.
because the more you're able to empower your people to do things better today, look at areas where you're sort of missing something and then start doing some training to get your organizations thinking about, or your people within your organizations thinking about how they can improve their processes. That
Hmm.
has a way of coming back to the organization and helping to improve the organization, because then the people start saying, hey, here are ways that we can improve this. Here are ways that we can switch this up. Here are ways that we can make this better. But before then, if this individual is an executive, then you need to look at your processes and start figuring out what are ways that AI can help optimize, this process. And I always put it in terms of ROI, return on investment. So
Hmm.
what's the area within your organization that is bringing you the highest return on investment, right? If you can three times it with AI, then your return on investment would also three times as well, right? So all the areas that you see within your organization that brings you that high return is where you want to focus on first.
Hmm.
And then before you realize it, you start optimizing the others as well.
All right. So the last question is, what is the relationship between AI and machine learning? What is the relationship between AI and machine learning?
See, they are married. Like, so here's the thing. In the past, what people even called machine learning, we used to call it data mining.
Mm.
So if you look at, there are books on pattern recognition that I read while I was still in school that were really like data mining. It was all data mining. Artificial intelligence is like your general purpose expert system. Machine learning is one of the approaches that exists within the broader context to help you solve, very, very specific problems. Machine learning is divided into, some people classify it three, four, but I would say supervised learning, unsupervised learning, reinforcement learning, right? Or some people put it under deep learning, right? But unsupervised learning is a situation where you don't necessarily have the training or the labeling. So I talked about the squares, right? So you have this item. I'm not sure if everyone can see. Okay, it shows as black. You
Yeah.
know, I have this item, and I have this item. and I want to be able to make a selection. I want the system to be able to know how to select between these two items. And so what I do is I take lots and lots of images within the context of these two items. I put it in my system and I try to train. In the first instance, which is supervised learning, I'm actually taking each one of them and I'm labeling it. I'm ingesting that label or putting that labeling into the system and having the system train on that. In the other instance, I'm not basically, and that doesn't work in the case of images, but that works with data, real-time data, and things of that nature. In the other
Mhm.
instance, right? Basically saying, hey, I don't necessarily need to know what the labels are. I just need to be able to use the data that I get to determine how it is classified. And so supervised, unsupervised, like these are deep concepts that I'll need maybe
Another session for.
another session to be able to go into. But the idea there is, just to summarize, the idea there is machine learning is like a subset of artificial intelligence. But even an expert system will be considered an artificial intelligence system. A decision tree, for example, something that is able to walk through like medical diagnosis in some form of a decision tree can be considered an expert system, can be considered an artificial intelligence system. But machine learning now involves you taking data, training data, and using that data to make your outcomes or to predict, whatever it is that you're trying to predict on the other end of the spectrum.
All right. So that wraps it all. Thank
Absolutely.
you so much. As much as we don't want this to end, we have just 1 hour. We can't keep talking forever. So thank you, everyone. I would like to, first of all, acknowledge the engagement on YouTube. The fellows made me super proud. Thank you so much for your insightful questions and your engagement, right? It made this really interesting. On behalf of the ZMTT community and the Federal Ministry of Communications, Innovations, and Digital Economy, I want to extend our heartfelt gratitude to our esteemed speaker, Dr. Odebode. Right. This has been an exceptional presentation. You did absolute justice to the topic. I love that, this was broken down in a way that resonated with everyone. We could all relate to the examples, to the case studies and all. We have students here, tech professionals, even a few people without technical background who are looking to come into tech. So this is really, really interesting, right? The discussion on generative AI also. I found that particularly eye-opening. So thank you so much for that. This session, it really reinforced the importance of staying curious, of embracing innovation, and just continuously embracing the possibilities that AI offers, right? And
Hmm?
I hope that we all leave here today inspired, empowered, and ready to make the most out of the 3MTT experience. A huge thank you once again for sharing your knowledge and expertise with us. Thank you so much for taking out the
Wow,
time. Thank you, everyone. And we hope that we'll have that a part two of this.
that'd be awesome.
Maybe talk about something different. So thank you very much. And to everyone, see you all in the next session. Have a good day, Doctor.
Thank
Thank
you
you.
so much, Sarah, for having me. Thank you all so much. Take care.
All right.
All right.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, so this will go off.